Thank you for joining. I am Stacy Farah, and I work with at XKL. I work in business development, and this is Coffee and Questions. It's a bi-weekly video podcast revolving around the world of networking, telecommunications, and the engineering that makes it all happen. Your host is XKL. We are an optical networking hardware vendor. And each vidcast, we will discuss networking from layer 1 to layer 7 and have expert guest overviews and peer-reviewed information regarding the latest in networking and telecommunications. Today, we're going to be talking about connected communities and the technology that's going to propel that into the future. And Gavin is our host, and he will be directing the conversation. All right, Gavin, it's all yours.
Well, good morning, everybody. And it is a beautiful morning here in Vancouver, as I suspect down in Seattle, a little later in the day for some of our guests. So every week we find a topic from questions that were asked in the previous session, or not every other week. And the question of connected communities came up, and then obviously, as a natural extension to connected communities, we'd like to explore the smart city and everything, so the smart motorways, smart freeways, smart everything to do with the smart world. My mouth's not working as fast as my brain, or vice versa this morning. So the most important question, and from speaking to various people in different roles within sort of the smart communities or the connected communities, the biggest question we've come up with is what is a connected community? And indeed, if what is a connected community, why is a connected community a connected community? So what I'd like to do is introduce our guest today. We have, and excuse me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Walid Ali from the Future Cities Council, who is a expert in smart cities and connected communities, and Colleen McCormick from the BC government, who is responsible for the connected communities projects here in British Columbia. What I'd like to do is perhaps hand over the floor to Colleen. We spoke at length yesterday, and she was explaining some of the reasons why they're looking to connect some of the Aboriginal First Nation communities along the coastline, and what connected communities really means to her and to... I've lost my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So, Colleen, would you like to explain what it is that you're doing with the BC government?
Sure. Thank you so much, Gavin, and good morning, everybody. From Victoria, British Columbia, on the unceded territory of the Lekwungen peoples, that is the Esquimalt, Songhees, and Wasanich nations, who have stewarded the beautiful lands that I have the privilege to live, work, and grow on. So it's a real pleasure to be here today. And I have to be honest, when Gavin reached out to invite me to this conversation, I'm not a tech person. I'm actually a community engagement lead, and I've spent the better half of 16 years in BC public service working on community innovation, community economic development, and really showcasing the heart and soul of community to others. And you can imagine tourism giving me a wonderful breadth of experience in this space that I now have the opportunity to do some work in, which is connected communities. Our role is really to work with regional districts, First Nation governments, Indigenous communities, and local governments, more in rural and remote areas of the province, because that's where the greatest need lies, and to work on digital readiness opportunities and initiatives. So there's a big project that's coming, in BC alive in the next few years, which is known as the Connected Coast Project. That is going to bring submarine fiber optic cable to over 149 communities which is extremely exciting. So we're looking at unprecedented digital capacity backbone that will light up from the center of Vancouver Island to the north tip up to the Haida Gwaii, for those who are familiar, Prince Rupert, and down to the Central Coast back into the Vancouver Exchange. And so it's a very exciting project, and as that continues to evolve down its natural path, we all understand these things don't happen overnight. Infrastructure is a significant time investment and effort and financial. And so we want to support the digital readiness, in particular, of all of the communities that will be impacted from this very exciting project, so that as the backbone comes into play, these communities will be able to dial it up with their last mile solutions, starting, if we do our job well, day one when that project comes live. So it's given me and my team, I have a mighty team of 3. We've just moved organizations, actually. We're in a Ministry of Citizen Services, and we've been moved into the Ministry of Economic Development. So it's Jobs, Economic Development, and Competitiveness. And that's a signal, I would say. It's a signal of understanding the key role. I often will work with communities around how connectivity can be a catalyst. It can bring a number of different voices and partners to the table. We've demonstrated this time and time again. If we take a needs-based approach and really work with the vision and the aspirations of communities and looking at their assets with a digital lens, what that illuminates for the work that we're all involved in, because it's at the end of the day, and Gavin and I chatted about this quite a bit yesterday, if connectivity and technology is not going to lead to community resiliency and well-being, then why are we even in this game at all? So communities educate me time and time again around their digital potential, and it's a very exciting role to play. I laugh and say I'm the luckiest public servant today, because I get to see a snippet of the future, and there couldn't be a better file for me to manage in government and lead, which is connected communities. We started off interviewing, more or less, and getting into the community and hanging out, getting to know what were some of the key conditions and attributes of those communities who were small, but using connectivity strategically to enhance all of their key priorities, whether that's in healthcare, in stewardship, in diversification of economy, tourism, whatever that might look like. But we wanted to map the characteristics of those communities, better understand the conditions, and then see if those conditions could be either replicated or, at least supported. And we developed a bit of a roadmap. It's not going to be too easy to see here, but it's just really, it's highlighting key components. We would call them pillars of what a connected community is all about. And I'll wrap up quickly here by saying one of the key patterns that I've seen in the work that I've done is identity is critical. And if people in a community have a strong identity, that's usually a result of connection to place. So place-based opportunities around connectivity and technology are critical, based around needs. And so some of the work that I've been leading with Coastal First Nations, as they will be benefactors of the Connected Coast project, is really looking at some of their key programs that they have. One is a Guardian Watchman program. Guardians are out on the water, protecting the waters and really studying different changes in the ecosystem. And Watchmen are on the land, monitoring all the changes to the land ecosystems. And so the various technologies and solutions that Coastal First Nations are looking for in particular to support that program really helps us build a strong basis for a digital plan that links directly to local job creation opportunities, areas that the communities really want to focus on, and it makes technology and the connectivity conversation come alive. And it's seen as an enabler to enhancing all of the good work that's already happening, rather than something else that now the community has to think about and figure out how they're going to respond to this. So that's been the wonderful journey of my work. This is a fairly new initiative. We're about 2 years old now, and we're working with over 60 different communities in various ways, rolled up to a regional level, because it's you can imagine the team and the capacity it takes. So we have a lot of partners. My team is only an extension of all the community partners that we have. So it's a point of privilege, I would say, to do this work and to really support the digital futures that these communities are going to continue to set out for themselves, and be a part of manifesting that, bringing it alive. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. Dr. Ali has, and I hope you can still hear me. My headphones keep bleeping and disconnecting and reconnecting.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. We spoke also yesterday, and one of the key points that you'd mentioned in your consulting role is starting with a strong foundation, the why, the purpose of building the connected community. Perhaps you could sort of give us an understanding of what it is that how you get involved in these projects and where these projects go to.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, and good morning there in BC, and good evening here, because here we have 8 p.m. So basically, let me speak about my little brief about myself and what we do in Future City Council. It's a consortium of experts, of consultants working on future smart cities. It's based in Canada, and what we do actually is to help cities to become smarter, either greenfield or brownfield cities. And then we studied a lot of cases of smart cities across the globe, about 362 smart city projects, and we collected most of the technology which are used to bring this city into smart cities. And also we start from the why, because as we spoke this morning, the technology is a tool, and smart city is the main objective of smart city or smart community is to bring a higher quality of life for citizens. So the citizen is at the center of smart cities, and the government and cities are using these emerging technologies like IoT, big data, blockchain, etc., to make the city smart for the citizens. So what we do actually, we studied more than 360 smart cities. We start from the why. We see what are the challenges that face the cities, and the challenges are different from one city to another. For example, in Europe, the challenges are healthcare. For example, in India, the traffic. So in some cities, we have the energy challenge. So each city has its own challenge. So this is the why. So when we help smart city in the roadmap for smartnership, we start from the why you want to be a smart cities, and then we try in our strategy to help them to bring a digital transformation strategy from this why, and then we show them what are the tools, what are the emerging technologies which can be used to solve these challenges, keeping the citizen in the center of all our approach. So when we develop a roadmap or strategy or digital transformation strategy for cities, we bring a sample of citizens. We bring on the table the industry who will develop the technology. We bring the government. We bring academicians from the academia. So we bring what we call the quadruple helix, and we put the citizen in the center. So the citizen will show us. Sometimes we do this through polling, or through surveys. The citizen, they tell us what is the city they want to live in, and what are their challenges. And then we bring all in the table, and we develop a nice strategy, a nice roadmap with citizen-centric, and we bring all the technology, the latest cutting-edge technology. We bring on the table some industries for the implementation, and we help this government to develop smart city. As I mentioned, we studied more than 360 smart city, and I have a lot of cases showing the failure of smart city. So when we talk, for example, about tech smart cities focusing on technology like Songdo in South Korea or Masdar in UAE, these are complete failure because they excluded the citizen from the development of smart cities. So these are failures cases, because when the cities are developed, they are high-tech, but nobody want to live there, because these cities are developed for the tech and for the government perspective, not excluding the citizen. So in our approach, we take the citizen in the heart of the development, and also after the development of the smart cities, we have a program which is called what we call Smart Cities University, where we train people about these new technologies. We show them, the citizen, the government, because some people are involved in smart city project and unfortunately they don't have a tech background. So we show them, these are the technology, these are the benefit, these are the disadvantage of technology when we talk about cyber security, etc., etc. So we show them, we bring them to the tech savvy side, and then they know the benefit of each solution, and then sometimes they advise, yes, we want to use such technology or other such technology, and so on. So the citizen is in the heart of the process, and the technology is a tool. And using this approach, we helped many cities and many government to be really citizen-centric, technology advanced smart cities or community or nation. I travel 40 times a year across the globe before the pandemic, of course, to help government and sometimes villages, because now we talk about smart village also, to stop the urbanization and process. So some government, like in India, they opt to bring smart villages. So why? Because smart cities came to solve the problem of urbanization. So governments in India say, okay, how to stop this urbanization? Let's bring the technology in the village side. So I work also with smart villages to bring this village as smart as possible. So the people or the citizens will stay in their village. They will not move to the big cities and to increase the urbanization. The other side that we work on is innovation. When we develop a project of smart cities, we involve the citizen through open innovation, digital innovation, to bring their solution. So they bring their problem. We do a lot of hackathon, a lot of training. So the solution also sometimes come from the citizen, not only from the big industry. So the citizen are involved sometimes in the development. And why we do that? Because when we rely on big companies in the implementation of smart cities, later in the maintenance, it will be very expensive. But when we focus on innovation, open innovation, and this open the door for the startups and the economy, this reduce the jobless, etc., etc. So smart city also is an engine of innovation, an engine of startups, because when we work on smart city project, we focus also on this point. So open innovation, technology, startups, and so on. So it's not only like a McDonald's shop, this is give me your problem and this is your solution. So it's an engine of innovation, and this is also in our perspective.
I think that's a really important point, actually. The innovation in all the projects that I've overlooked has been the key to the projects. And we have Jawad Hamid on the call today as well. In terms of the smart cities and smart communities, one of the large communities worldwide that seems to get under-addressed a lot of the times, but during the pandemic is getting addressed quite vividly now, is the K-12 education market. And Jawad's been developing solutions for distance learning, so real-world applications for smart innovation within the education sector. And you also mentioned sort of the traveling, and the traveling's huge. I've been to a lot of shows around the world, and I've seen a lot of technology being displayed, and it's often not possible to understand where they feel that technology is going to get placed. It's almost as if in some cases companies are building technology just for the sake of building technology. There's no clarity in where it's going to get used. And from that perspective, I've also invited Jason O'Rourke on the call. Jason works with PTC, the Pacific Telecommunications Council. And in January, they hold the conference every year. This year's conference was very educational for me in terms of the smart communities, smart cities. I attended a number of the breakout sessions, and one of them was with the state of Sarawak in Malaysia, where they're basically trying to be a smart state. So I've seen everything in these shows, from the smart classroom right up to the smart city to the smart state. And eventually, I suspect we're going to have some sort of smart globe forum where we can bring all this together as a sort of global citizens. Jason, do you have anything you would like to add about what PTC's involvement is with the sort of connected communities around the Pacific Rim?
I think one of the things that we've been trying to do, we introduced the Innovation Awards a couple of years ago, and now that's been rebranded as the PTC Awards. So that's part of what we've been trying to do, is recognize the organizations that are doing these types of projects. So we have a number of different award categories. Actually, we just posted on our social media, one of last year's recipients was MTA Fiber Holdings. So it's an Alaskan cable. So it was the first cable, I guess, connecting Alaska to the lower 48. So essentially, our mission as an organization, we hold the conference, we bring everybody in from around the world to give them an opportunity to connect. And the goal, the mission of our nonprofit organization is that our companies that are participating are using ICT to improve the quality of life for people across the Pacific Rim. So in addition to providing that global meeting, we're hoping that we can also recognize the groups that are doing these initiatives through the PTC Awards.
And the organization you mentioned that's coming from, I guess, North Slope area of Alaska down into British Columbia with Northwest Tel, they just announced that they've completed that initial connection. I think maybe it's an organization that Colleen may be interested in talking to as well, because there are synergies. If they're looking to expand their fiber footprint, maybe they'd like to participate in other projects that are underway, like the Oceanic Cable up the coast of BC. So there's some good synergies there. I'd highly recommend the PTC trade show as an event to go to, just because it's a very conversational show. So it's a lot like this meeting. So a lot of people just sharing their ideas, sharing the technologies that they're using, the innovation that they're employing. Definitely worth participating in. And then I run out of things to say. Jawad, would you like to mention anything about the K-12 software that you're working on?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much, Gavin, for giving me this opportunity to part of this group. And hi, everyone. First of all, I give you a brief intro about myself. This is Jawad Hamid. Basically, I'm from Pakistan, but living in UAE and working on my own company as a startup. My background is I worked for telecom company almost 10 years ago. And afterward, I have started my own startup, and that startup is for the education sector. On that education sector, I have introduced like the 360-degree school management system at initially, where parents will get an SMS of their child exit and entry, which is some sort of child security when the child exit into from the school. So parents will get an alert from the school that that child had left from the school, and now he's about to leave. And afterward, we have worked on the e-diary. So my whole experience from past 5 or 6 years, which is related to the education side. Now we are from past couple of months, you can say that I'm working on e-learning platform, which is for the distance learning. But now, during that time, the pandemic, the COVID situation is here, and that is very important for the students and the schools and the teachers. So how they can learn working at home. So did some market research on the MENA region on that sector. You can say that it's almost you can say like 3% faster growth of K-12 sector in the MENA region, and it's almost 79% growth is expected till 2023. So there is a big market in for the K-12 market, especially in the education sector. As far as for the UE is concerned, the government is pretty much more focused on the education side to enable the technology for the students, because the children are at home and the school are closed. So the main challenge for the teachers and the school is how to motivate the student or child to read the books, because when the kid is in the school, so it's a different environment, so they're forced to learn or study. But when they are at home, so there's a big challenge for them. And now we don't know till what situation and till when this situation will goes on. So that's the main time we are promoting the product, which is some sort of early learning, early literacy. um, you can assist the skills of the child, his learning habits, his reading habits. And we have a digital library as well, where the 10,000 digital library is there. So kids can read the books according to his or her level. So this is the main thing, I think. In the K-12, the kids are at home and the education is necessary for them. Same thing, I have worked in Pakistan as well. We work with multiple schools over here, and on that perspective, we have implemented the attendance management thing, the child security thing. So the overall experience is for the education sector. But due to that pandemic situation, now the most important thing is that there's a big gap between the schools and the children, and we don't know till when this situation is going on. And so my main priority is that to work on that platform and looking after some opportunities and the partners, so we can penetrate into the region. The Ali has also said that about the smart city as well. So that is very important in the smart city, that we can work in for the e-learning side. So we can build a digital school, you can say that. So that's the whole background, and that's what we are doing right now. And that's all.
Thanks. That's a good introduction as well. I think at this point, I'd like just to open up the discussion. If anyone has any questions for anybody else, please let us know. Let's see if we can grow a good conversation here.
Yeah, I think that's a good conversation. That's a good start to bring the all market player and the people under one roof. So all of us, we can sit together, build something very good for the nation and for the world as well. So we all here to putting our all efforts with respect to the domain. So I think this is the good initiative which has been initiated by the Gavin. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. Our pleasure. So very quickly, PTC, if you're interested in joining, is in January every year. The website is ptc.org. Take a look at it, and Jason will be happy to explain what the council is about and how the council has evolved over the last while. I have noticed in the last few years that the attendees have leapt quite astoundingly from just the specific region to pretty much everywhere in the world nowadays. So it's a very interesting melting pot of ideas and suggestions and technologies. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss on this call?
Hey, Colleen, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
What's the budget for a project like that, and what's your timeline to connect the communities?
So this was funded by the federal government, as well as Indigenous Services Canada, the province. 45 million is the project cost, and Strathcona Regional District is one of the proponents, as well as a small ISP, City West, up north in Prince Rupert, who is owned by the city of Prince Rupert. So this is kind of, a government initiative and really looking at introducing, there is a market need, right? There's a market failure out there that, and I think COVID has demonstrated in spades what the cost of having so many rural and remote communities disconnected, and how that has really, raised the profile of connectivity, the value of it. We're not just talking about it's great to be connected for social and health and education, which is all critical, but the conversation is elevated to equal access to social justice. And that's a different conversation. So the project itself is a 3-year kind of build out. Things go slow, as we know, and we've got wonderful weather challenges here and challenging geography. So the 2023 is kind of the timeline that we're looking at for this project. And they're moving into just the procurement process and everything like that. So to lay the cable. But it's interesting IP. It's unique, and that's why the price of the project was where it came in at. So we'll see how things progress on this. Very excited. The communities are anxious, but that's the timeline we're looking at, and the cost.
And are any of the incumbent providers being asked to participate in this, such as the TELUS or?
Well, there's as it continues on, City West has. Look at the proponents, and they'll decide where they want to support efforts. And there's we'd like to see a lot of great collaboration out there for sure. There's opportunities, but we'll see how that goes. But there's a lot of interest in the coast in terms of what does a connected coast actually enable? What does it unlock? And we've got Ocean Networks Canada doing a lot of great research. We've got the deepest ocean in the world. We've got renowned stewardship from the Coastal First Nations, providing ongoing research and data and analysis. And so it's critical that we get this infrastructure in place, and then really work with the communities so they have a clear understanding of how they want to activate that technology for the benefit of resiliency and community well-being priorities. So it's very exciting to have the planning conversations now, because you talk to some of the nations around how they would deploy drone technology. It'll blow your mind in terms of how they actually think about the technology and what it could do. So I think we're going to see a leapfrog if we do the planning right opportunity with some of these communities coming online. We have to figure out the last mile solution. That's still got to be thought through from the community perspective, and what their values are and how they want to see that service provided. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see the shift in thinking to enable these communities to look at all of their assets and all of their priorities in a different way. And that's learning for all of us. We call it connected communities, are digital by design. And we didn't go with the smart community approach, because even though we're all talking about the same principles and outcomes, smart doesn't necessarily translate or resonate well out in the rural areas. And then even with the big global conferences, I would always, be on the sidelines saying it's important that we have the smart city conversation. Absolutely. But we're missing the smart intercontinental conversation and all of the great efforts that are going on supporting our ecosystems and enabling us to even begin to think about smart cities. So yes, I know I'm kind of answering a few things in this simple question, but yeah, it's an exciting project to see come through all of these different stages, and we really want to learn where are the points for intervention when it comes to digital readiness and acceleration of understanding of how to utilize bandwidth in ways that we haven't begun to understand it yet ourselves.
You raised a few points there as well. Yesterday when you spoke, I hadn't really thought about the equal access to justice. That's something that was very apparent very early on in Canada during the COVID pandemic breakout, where people weren't able to get justice or have access to justice because they weren't able to travel for that justice. And Clean can probably provide better examples than that than I can, but it presented a very interesting conundrum. Last year, I unfortunately rented a trailer for a family holiday from somebody who was a little less than honest. So we ended up in a arbitration situation, and that was all handled online. And it was the first time I've been in a virtual arbitration session. So it's definitely a challenge. It's a challenge because not everybody is capable of promoting themselves and their case properly in an online setting where they would be able to present it verbally much better. And so even having the technology to provide people access to equal justice doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting it, because now there is bias in the perception of the individual just because of how they present virtually instead of in person. So it's an interesting area to explore. And you also mentioned that smart cities is one thing, but the community is more important. And I think that's what Dr. Ali was also referring to when he said that the projects are all built around the individuals and then the projects expand from there. And I think that's an extremely important way to look at this sort of development. Do you have anything to add to that, Dr. Ali?
Yeah, absolutely. What I mentioned is very important, and we have a complete field called law tech, where we infuse technology in law and all of this issue, regulation, and so on. Just I want to add that many people take the pandemic COVID as a threat, but when we talk about smart city, it's an opportunity. And what is discussed now is a lot of documents showing that pandemic COVID-19 is a challenge which accelerated the digital transformation of cities and communities. I know many cities hold back by regulation. For example, when you talk about a drone, before the pandemic, and now they are authorizing drones for face detection and for disinfection and so on. So the pandemic is a great challenge and a great boost for smart cities. And again, in this pandemic, which is a new challenge, what we call black swan or black elephant challenge, the successful cities are the cities who put the citizen in the heart. Because in many cities now, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of technology, but if the citizens, they don't comply with the regulation of pandemic, social distancing, etc., the cities are showing a failure in that case. But the cities, the smart cities or community, where the citizens are respecting all this, regulation with the help of technology, they have shown a decrease in the number of cases of COVID. Again, this COVID-19 shows us that smart cities, which is accelerated now, if you put the citizen in the heart of the formula, you will be successful to face whatever challenge. Because we remember that the challenges that bring the smart city up are the urbanization and the growing population across the globe. And this bring the concept of smart cities. And now the pandemic put again the smart cities on the table, but again it shows if we put the citizen in the heart of the formula, we'll be very successful. And if we don't put the citizen using whatever technology, whatever advanced technology, you will not tackle the challenges. So citizen, again I repeat, is in the heart of the formula. Technology is a tool, and citizen and the quality of life and all of these issues are in the heart of smart cities or communities. And this is what I want to add, basically.
Great, thank you.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. We always have a slogan. It's not a slogan. It's what we believe. It's ethos. Meet communities where they're at. And when you build from there, we'll see limitless potential. I'll share a hammer when I'm doing engagement sessions, especially if there's fear. There's still a lot of fear around some of the technology, and smart cities hasn't really, in some cases, gotten off to a strong start in Canada. And you look at Sidewalk Labs and other initiatives. So it's important to build that trust and deep understanding of what we mean by a connected community. And I'll say, you know, a hammer can build a house, but it can also smash a skull in. And it's knowing what you want to do with that hammer. And it's the same with tech. It's a tool. This is a tool, and it enables the vision and you know, the hopes of the community. And once they take control of that future and that opportunity, it's incredible to see what happens in terms of their visioning of what is possible, the art of the possible.
It's quite a stark.
Yeah.
Similarly, the hammer building the house or crushing the skull.
Yeah. You've got all sorts of, in communities, all sorts of different people coming to the conversations. And there's a level of understanding. When we started to do open engagements, we learned fast, oh, there's an education process that's critical here. You can't just open up the conversation. Yeah. It's far too challenging if you do that because of all the different perspectives and concerns. You can't get through a constructive dialogue often, if that's the case.
So, Colleen, are there similar projects in the inland BC as well, ongoing, or is it just in coastal communities?
There's similar projects all the time in flight here, but in terms of my intimate connection to projects right now, Connected Coast is where my focus is on. I work with the Kootenay area, the Columbia Basin Trust. They have their own ISP as well. They provide backhaul services. And there's another number of very exciting initiatives in that region. We have a small community that I always promote called Canal Flats. It's under 800 people. And they were a mill community that went into transition because the mill shut down, and they've been able to build themselves up in 18 or so months into a technology mega center. And that's because they had great local government leadership. They had great entrepreneurs in the region, and they're now moving into conversations around being a 5G rural accelerator because they've really demonstrated how what the rural recipe is for transformation of going from one resource reliance model to a piece of a broader opportunity, because they use the heat off of the data centers. The black box doesn't really generate a lot of local economic opportunity, but it does create other potential interest. So the heat that comes off of the data center in Canal Flats goes into greenhouses. It could go nowhere, but they funnel it into greenhouses, and they start to address food security issues in the region. They're now attracting agri-tech, small startups. They're now working with the local academic institutions and doing, you know, training. They've been doing that for years. This region's amazing in terms of what they've been able to drive forward. Nelson, BC is another city, small community. They're 5G ready and enabled. So they could get there before Toronto gets there, or Canal Flats could demonstrate some incredible advancement before other cities get there. And it's not a competition, but it's just, again, we need to rethink rural and what the advantage of rural is in terms of this conversation around smart and connected, because there's a lot of insight, I think, to be gained from these communities as they start to utilize technology. Once they get connected, I think we'll learn a lot. And so my role is to really work on the business case isn't there for these communities. It's not likely going to be there anytime soon. So how can we build the use case? How can we demonstrate through regional collaboration multiple ways that this community is not just looked at from a population perspective and how many households can be connected? We need to change that conversation and really look at what does this community, what does this region really have to offer, and how do we support it through bringing the right partners, targeted supports, and opportunities to activate them. My team, we're out of the office. We're really in communities, seeing what's going on and building those relationships because it's so critical. And most of these communities can't necessarily participate on a Zoom call. So we, it's a really exciting role, and there's days where I just, throw my hands up, and I can't wait till we see people connected. But I also hear the community concerns, especially vulnerable communities who don't want to see just, this technology come in and take over. They really want to learn how to use it in the right way, and they're showcasing me how to do that. And my role is to bring that argument back to government, and how we do our work and the approach that we take.
Well, back in early 2000s, I had a coffee shop in Nelson, BC.
You mentioned that. I thought that was hilarious. Of course.
One of the things I wanted to do, but we didn't have enough bandwidth for, was to put webcams at each of the computer terminals and have agreements with other coffee shops, other locations around the world, so people could go and have a cup of coffee together, even if they're in different countries. And now I'm thinking back about it, that was like, connected cafes. It was the start of all this.
No surprise you're hosting this dialogue right now, Gavin.
Yeah. Coffee shops are a fantastic thing. They're sort of the middle office. When you want to have a meeting with somebody, but you don't want to go to their office, they don't want to come to your office, it's a bit of a standoff situation, you go to a coffee shop. It's the ideal place. Anybody else have any questions or anything they want to add for this part of the session? We're 10 to the hour, so we still got 10 minutes to talk about whatever we want.
I have a question for Dr. Ali. I just need to know about, like, you are working on the smart city in Middle East and UAE. So what actually the education side you are working on? So is there any plan for that, or you that is already working on it? So something like now the current situation is a big challenge for the education is the e-learning over there. So what actually is the digital classroom or something like that? You people are working on it. So is there something planned or it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, as you know, UAE is very advanced in smart city, especially Dubai with their program Smart Dubai, and they are focusing on smart education. But again, in the agenda of Dubai is not only Smart Dubai, is Happy Dubai, and they put the citizen in the heart, and they realize that e-learning technology, 100% e-learning technology is not efficient because they need face-to-face contact, etc., etc. So they will use the smart technology in education, but not as 100%, maybe 50%, because the education sector is very important. We cannot build smart cities without smart education. So education is a big pillar. As you know, the market in UAE is very competitive, especially in terms of education. I have seen a lot of smart platforms using the latest AI technology, face recognition, etc., just to bring the seamless experience of education. They want to bring the 360 degree of the education at home. But again, this is, and I agree with them, this is in the education for kids especially, we need this face-to-face contact, we need this interaction with the professor. So it's not about only learning process. So this is very, very important in the learning activity, this face-to-face contact. So they are working very hard in this field, especially with the pandemic, but also they are planning the post-pandemic era where they use technology, but at the same time they are changing now the infrastructure of classrooms, of schools, to bring back the kids at the school. So again, online platform, smart technology is there as a tool, but the kids, the pupils and the students are in the heart, and they want to bring them back safe to the school. For that reason, they are pushing the infrastructure of the school for disinfection and all this post-pandemic infrastructure. So it's very, very important. And I saw a lot of technology coming in the education, but but again, they don't want to bring it 100% in the education. Maybe in other fields, that's fine, like mobility, etc. But in the education, it's very, very important.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Just, Gavin, I want to add something related to collaboration, and because the problem of Smart Cities project within the country and with international also view, people, they work in silos, and unfortunately, they don't share best practices in terms of smart city development project. So personally, what I have done, I studied more than 360 smart cities and community projects, and I studied their challenges, what are the technology which have been used, and what are the sectors. And we collected more than 66 smart technology, from drone to blockchain to AI, applied to 45 sectors. And we collected hundreds of best practices of smart city. For example, in smart city A, what technology which is used in the sector of mobility. In smart city B, what technology which is used in the sector of agriculture. And we came up with hundreds of best practices, and we started putting them in an online platform. So this online platform, where we'll share all the best practices, and we classify these best practices by city, by sector, by technology. So this will give a boost of collaboration on a global level between people working on smart cities. Also, we have a pool of experts in smart cities. We have more than 70,000 experts classified by sector, by technology in the field of smart cities. So we put this pool of talent and this pool of innovation online, and it's free for everybody. And recently I put a focus on COVID. So which are the technology which are used till now to fight COVID? And I put this online. I can share the link with you. And many people across the world are looking at this set of innovation and get inspired. I know many people in, for example, Tunisia and North Africa, they looked at this page, they saw a lot of technological innovation, which for example, used by Korea to help COVID, and they are being adopted in Tunisia. And this is what I want to focus on. If you want to build quickly in accelerated way a smart city or community, we have to work in collaboration, and we have to look at the best practices across the globe, and this will accelerate. You know, technology, what we call it's exponential technology. Now it's accelerated. So if we are still thinking in linear way, we cannot build the smartest smart city or community. So we have also to think in an exponential way, and to do that we have to collaborate on a local level and also on international level. We have to exchange innovation, idea, cases, and best practices. And this is basically what I have done.
That's fantastic. If you could share the link, we will pass it on to everybody to have a look at.
Yeah.
Sounds like we should create some sort of global forum for connected communities and get together with everyone else we can find.
Yeah.
And personally, I like the idea of using Hawaii in January because it's warm, and Vancouver is not warm. Dubai is also warm in January as well.
No, but if you come December or January, this is the best time to visit, but not in July or August because it's 55 plus.
Yeah. Well, even in October, it was very overpowering for me.
Yeah, December, January.
JH and I met each other at Jitex there.
In Jitex.
Yeah.
So ironically, the whole social distancing and not being able to see people is a very strange thing. But I've been doing work with JH for quite a few years before we met in Dubai. And I think we both stopped and stared at each other and went, wait a second, I know you, right, from across a crowded conference room, even though we'd never ever met face to face before. It was quite a strange scenario.
Yeah.
And now we're definitely keeping social.
Yeah, I was walking in the wall and just see, I know this guy, and that's a given.
Yeah. Give me 1 second, please. That's my personal assistant leaving the room. Sorry. He's got 4 legs and a small bladder. I would very much like to see if we could get some sort of group together, even if we sort of utilize an event that exists to get together and talk about the connected communities and try and make something bigger out of this. I think there's a really big conversation with a lot more people needed to converse. But this is a great start to learning more about it.
Yeah, it would be great. It would be a great global dialogue, and then putting the communities and the citizens in the center and sharing how they interpret connected community would be powerful, I think.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did this a requirement for quite a lot of surveys to be done to gain that assessment, especially from cities that have already sort of gone down the smart city route or the connected community route, just to find out what the feedback is 18 months, 2 years after.
Yeah.
Right now, there's still a lot of people who are sort of conspiracy theorists, nuts. I don't quite know how to put it, but sort of claiming that 5G is, the tool of Satan in many respects. So I think it'd be good to start educating people on what these tools really are, and not what they get told by their peers on Facebook or Twitter. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think it's been a great call. Really enjoyed meeting everybody, and would like to follow up with this again at some point soon.
Sure.
If it's okay with everybody, can I share people's contact data, the email addresses?
Yes, sure.
No worries.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Then we'll do that after the call. We'll collect them all together, and we'll send out a list to everybody.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Gavin.
Have a great rest of the day and evening. And night.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, just the four of us.